Jeffrey L. Elman (1948–2018) was a pioneering cognitive scientist and psycholinguist renowned for his transformative contributions to connectionism and the computational modeling of language. He is most famous for developing the simple recurrent network SRN, often called the Elman net, which he introduced in his seminal 1990 paper, Finding Structure in Time. This architecture revolutionized the field by demonstrating how neural networks could process sequential data and learn temporal dependencies such as the hierarchical structure of sentences without needing an explicit, spatial representation of time. Beyond the SRN, Elman co-developed the trace model of speech perception with J. McClelland and co-authored the influential book Rethinking Innateness, which challenged strict nativist views of development. A founding member of the first cognitive science department in the world at UC San Diego, Elman's work bridged the gap between computer science and psychology, showing that complex linguistic behaviors could emerge from simple, prediction-based learning processes. Jeffrey Locke Elman was born on January 22, 1948, in Burbank, California, into a creative and transient household. His parents, known as Tex and IRV, were head writers for famous daytime soap operas like General Hospital and Search for Tomorrow, a background that led the family to crisscross the country 20 times before finally settling in Pacific Palisades. Elman's youth was marked by a rebellious and adventurous spirit. Before starting college, he spent a summer living with a family in Uganda, and as a student at Harvard, he famously moonlighted in phone hacking, a hobby that briefly drew the attention of the FBI. After graduating from Harvard in 1969 with a degree in social relations, he spent several years working as a computer programmer and a bilingual high school teacher while engaging in political activism. He eventually transitioned into academia, earning his PhD in linguistics from the University of Texas at Austin in 1977, which set the stage for his long and distinguished career at UC San Diego. 1977 Perceptual Switching in Bilinguals. This paper examines perceptual switching mechanisms in bilingual individuals. 1977 Phonetic Context Effects on the Identification of Stop Consonants. This abstract discusses effects of phonetic context on stop consonant identification. 1977 Response Bias Account of Selective Adaptation. This abstract proposes a response bias explanation for selective adaptation in speech perception. 1978 Contrast Effects on Stop Consonant Identification. This paper investigates contrast effects influencing stop consonant identification. 1979 Perceptual Origins of the Phoneme Boundary Effect and Selective Adaptation to Speech, a Signal Detection Theory Analysis. This paper analyzes phoneme boundary effects and selective adaptation using signal detection theory. 1979 Spanish Noun and Adjective Stress Assignment, a Non-Phonological Account. This colloquium presentation offers a non-phonological explanation for stress assignment in Spanish. 1980 Intonation Contingent Adaptation to Speech. This paper explores adaptation to speech contingent on intonation. 1980 The Effects Pitch Disturbed Feedback on Vocal Productions. This abstract examines effects of pitch distorted feedback on vocal production. 1980 Sinistral Insight and Dextral Dominance, the Neuropsychology of Left-Handedness. This review discusses neuropsychology of left-handedness. 1981 Effects of Frequency-Shifted Feedback on the Pitch of Vocal Productions. This paper studies effects of frequency-shifted feedback on vocal pitch. 1981 Lateral Asymmetries for the Identification of Concrete and Abstract Kanji. This paper investigates hemispheric asymmetries in kanji identification. 1981 Asymmetries for the categorization of kanji nouns, adjectives, and verbs presented to the left and right visual fields. This paper examines hemispheric asymmetries in categorizing kanji word classes. 1981 An interactive activation model of speech perception. This abstract presents an interactive activation model for speech perception. 1982 Recency effects for native and non-native language presentations. This working paper explores recency effects in bilingual processing. 1982 Approaches to speech. This contribution discusses approaches to speech perception. 1982 Perspectives on the Study of Speech. Ames, P.D., Miller, J.L. This review covers perspectives on speech study. 1983 Exploiting Lawful Variability in the Speech Wave. This abstract discusses exploiting variability in speech signals. 1983 Oral versus manual tapping with delayed auditory feedback as measures of cerebral dominance. This paper uses tapping tasks to measure cerebral dominance. 1983 Sensory and cognitive components of speech perception. This work separates sensory and cognitive components in speech perception. 1984 Speech perception as a cognitive process, the interactive activation model. This paper frames speech perception as a cognitive process using interactive activation. 1984 Auditory perception, a new synthesis. Warren, R.M. This review discusses a new synthesis in auditory perception. 1985 Interference between phonemes during monitoring, evidence for an interactive activation model of speech perception. This paper provides evidence for interactive activation in phoneme monitoring. 1985 An architecture for parallel processing in speech recognition, the trace model in speech and speaker recognition. This chapter describes trace architecture for parallel speech processing. 1985 Interactive activation model of speech perception. This presents the interactive activation model for speech perception. 1986 The trace model of speech perception. This seminal paper introduces the trace model for speech perception. 1986 Interactive processes in speech perception, the trace model. This chapter details interactive processes in the trace model. 1986 Interactive processes in speech perception, the trace model, parallel distributed processing, explorations in the microstructure of cognition. Volume 2, Psychological and, this volume contribution explores trace in parallel distributed processing. 1986 Discovering acoustic features with a connectionist learning algorithm. This abstract discusses connectionist learning of acoustic features. 1987 Speaker verification system. This patent describes a speaker verification system. 1988 Learning the hidden structure of speech. This paper presents connectionist discovery of hidden structure in speech. 1988 Cognitive penetration of the mechanisms of perception, compensation for corticulation of lexically restored phonemes. This paper shows top-down cognitive influences on speech perception. 1988 Copyright C2000 Bell and Howell Information and Learning Compan. V. This appears to be a citation index entry. 1989 Representation and structure in connectionist models. This paper discusses representation and structure in connectionist models. 1989 Connectionist approaches to acoustic phonetic processing. This chapter covers connectionist methods for acoustic phonetic processing. 1989 Structured representations and connectionist models. 11th Annual Conference of the Cognitive Science Society. This conference paper explores structured representations in connectionism. 1990 Finding structure in time. This highly influential paper introduces simple recurrent networks for processing temporal sequences. 1990 Neural network modeling and connectionism. This work discusses neural network modeling in connectionism. 1990 The Journal of Speech and Hearing Research wishes to thank the following individuals who served as guest consultants for manuscripts considered for publication in 1990. This is an acknowledgement list. 1991 Distributed Representations, Simple Recurrent Networks, and Grammatical Structure. This paper explores how SRNs handle grammatical structure. 1991 Incremental Learning, or the Importance of Starting Small. This conference paper emphasizes starting small in network training. 1991 The Role of Input and Target Similarity in Assimilation. This conference paper examines similarity effects in assimilation. 1991 James L. McClelland. This appears to be a citation or index entry. 1991 Connectionist Models, Proceedings of the 1990 Summer School Workshop. These are proceedings from a connectionist summer school. 1991 Connectionist Models, Proceedings of the 1990 Summer School held at the University of California at San Diego. These proceedings document the 1990 Connectionist Summer School. 1991 Connectionist Models, Proceedings of the Summer School held in San Diego, California on 1990. Variant Proceedings from the Connectionist Summer School, 1992 A PDP Approach to Processing Center Embedded Sentences. This conference paper uses PDP models for complex sentence processing. 1992 Transputer Implementation of the Trace Model of Speech Recognition. This report describes transputer implementation of trace. 1992 Transputer Implementation of the Trace Model of Speech Recognition Final Report, May 1, 1987 March 31, 1992. This final report on trace implementation. 1992 Connectionism and the Study of Change number 9202. This working paper explores connectionism in studying change. 1992 A PDP Approach to Processing Center Embedded Sentences. This proceedings version on center embedded sentences. 1993 Learning and Development in Neural Networks, The Importance of Starting Small. This paper demonstrates benefits of incremental learning in neural networks. 1993 Connectionism and the Study of Change. This contribution discusses connectionism in studying developmental change. 1993 From Weird to War, A Connectionist Account of Language Change Mary Hare Department of Psychology, Birkbeck College, University of London Hare at CRL. This conference paper models morphological change connectionistically. 1993 Analyzing Cross-Connected Networks. This advances paper analyzes cross-connected networks. 1993 Situated Agents. This discusses situated agents in cognition. 1993 Cairns, H.S., 193. This appears to be a citation index. 1993 Jonathan St. B. T. Evans University of Plymouth The Mental Model Theory of Conditional Reasoning, Critical Appraisal and Revision, L20. This index entry. 1993 Cultural Learning. This discusses cultural aspects of learning. 1993 Proceedings of the 1993 Connectionist Models Summer School. These proceedings from the 1993 Summer School. 1994 Learning and Evolution in Neural Networks. This paper explores co-evolution of learning and evolution in networks. 1994 Implicit Learning in Neural Networks, The Importance of Starting Small. This book chapter reiterates importance of starting small. 1994 Language in, on, and about time. This chapter discusses temporal aspects of language. 1994 Finnish Nominal Inflection. This discusses patterns in Finnish inflection. 1995 Learning and Morphological Change. This paper models morphological change in connectionist networks. 1995 Default Generalization in Connectionist Networks. This paper examines default generalizations in networks. 1995 Learning to Count Without a Counter, a case study of dynamics and activation landscapes in recurrent networks. This conference paper studies counting in recurrent networks. 1995 Language as a Dynamical System. This chapter treats language as a dynamical system. 1995 Gene Regulation and Biological Development in Neural Networks, an exploratory model. This model explores gene regulation in neural development. 1995 8 Language as. This excerpt on language in dynamical cognition. 1995 Mind as Motion, Explorations in the Dynamics of Cognition. This book explores dynamical approaches to cognition. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This seminal book challenges nativism with connectionist developmental models. 1996 Rethinking Innateness. This variant of the influential book on connectionist development. 1996 Learning Rediscovered. This science article rediscovers learning principles. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, Connectionism in a Developmental Framework. This version frames connectionism developmentally. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective. This reiterates connectionist view on development. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development Volume 10. This volume in the series. 1996 Rethinking Nativism, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This challenges nativism connectionistically. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist. This partial title on connectionist development. 1996 AL 1996, Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This citation variant. 1996 Kim Plunkett. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This citation entry. 1996 Bates. This partial citation. 1996 Parisi. This partial citation. 1996 Carmelo Smith A., Parisi D., Plunkett K. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This citation. 1996 Rethinking Innateness, a Developmental Perspective on Connectionism. This developmental perspective variant. 1996 Rethinking Innateness. A Bradford book. This Bradford book edition. 1996 A Connectionist Perspective on Development. This perspective on connectionist development. 1996 Explorations with the Dynamic Wave Model. This advances dynamic wave modeling. 1996 Neural Network Modeling and Connectionism, number 10. Rethinking Innateness, a Connectionist Perspective on Development. This modeling entry. 1996 Center for Research in Language. This newsletter or report. 1996 Mar Prize Committee. This committee listing. 1997 Exercises in Rethinking Innateness, a handbook for connectionist simulations. This handbook provides simulations for rethinking innateness. 1997 Connectionism and Developmental Psychology. This paper links connectionism to developmental psychology. 1997 The Shape of Change. This chapter models developmental trajectories. 1997 A Handbook for Connectionist Simulations. This handbook for simulations. 1997 Connectionism and Developmental Psychology. Child Psychology and Psychiatry and Allied Disciplines, 38 1, 53-80. This journal version. 1997 Single mechanism equals single representation. No. This conference challenges single mechanism views. 1997 Acton, FS 1996. Real computing made real, preventing errors in scientific and engineering calculations. Princeton, New Jersey, Princeton University Press. V plus 259 pages 829.95. ISBN 0-691, this review or index. 1997 Acquiring Language Response. This response on language acquisition. 1998 A connectionist simulation of the empirical acquisition of grammatical relations. This workshop simulates grammatical relation acquisition. 1998 Generalization, Simple Recurrent Networks, and the Emergence of Structure. This conference paper shows structure emergence in SRN's 1998 Cues, Constraints, and Competition in Sentence Processing. This chapter discusses processing cues and constraints. 1998 Defining the Radical Middle. This discusses moderate positions in debates. 1998 Language Processing. This handbook entry on language processing. 1998 What does it mean to claim that something is innate? Response to Clark, Harris, Lightfoot, and Samuels. This response critiques innateness claims. 1998 What does it mean to claim that something is innate? Response to Clark, Harris, Life. This partial response. 1998 Innateness and Emergentism, a companion to cognitive science. This companion entry on innateness. 1998 On Theory and Modeling. This discusses theory in developmental science. 1999 A recurrent neural network that learns to count. This paper presents a network learning to count. 1999 Do infants learn grammar with algebra or statistics? The science comment debates grammar learning mechanisms. 1999 Networks are not hidden rules. This Trends article argues against hidden rules in networks. 1999 Generalization, Rules, and Neural Networks, a Simulation of Marcus et al., 1999. This manuscript simulates rule generalization. 1999 The Empirical Acquisition of Grammatical Relations. This Proceedings on Grammatical Acquisition. 1999 Understanding the Modeling Endeavor. This journal discusses modeling in child language. 1999 Watching the Transients, Viewing a Simple Recurrent Network as a Limited Counter. This paper analyzes transients in SRNs as counters. 2000 The Ontogeny and Phylogeny of Language, a Neural Network Perspective. This chapter views language evolution connectionistically. 2001 Learnability and the Statistical Structure of Language, Poverty of Stimulus Arguments Revisited. This conference revisits poverty of stimulus with statistics. 2001 A connectionist investigation of linguistic arguments from the poverty of the stimulus, learning the unlearnable. This conference investigates poverty of stimulus connectionistically. 2001 The frequency of major sentence types over discourse levels, a corpus analysis. This newsletter analyzes sentence type frequencies. 2001 Representing variable information with simple recurrent networks. This conference on variable representation in SRNs 2001 Activating verbs from typical agents, patients, instruments, and locations via event schemas. This conference on verb activation from schemas. 2001 Recurrent neural networks for predicting outcomes after liver transplantation, representing temporal sequence of clinical observations. This paper uses RNNs for medical prediction. 2001 Connectionism and Language Acquisition. This book contribution on connectionist language acquisition. 2001 A connectionist investigation of linguistic arguments from the poverty of the stimulus. This proceedings variant. 2001 The trace model of speech. This reprint of trace model. 2001 Brains, Genes, and Computation in Language Development. This readings on language development. 2002 Development as a Source of Complexity. This conference on development generating complexity. 2003 Sense and Structure, Meaning as a Determinant of Verb Subcategorization Preferences. This paper shows meaning influencing subcategorization. 2003 Generalization from Sparse Input. This linguistics meeting on sparse generalization. 2003 Development, It's About Time. This paper emphasizes timing in development. 2003 Signposts Along the Garden Path. This conference on ambiguity resolution. 2004 An Alternative View of the Mental Lexicon. This trends paper proposes distributed lexical representations. 2004 Cues, Constraints, and Competition in Sentence Processing. This book chapter on sentence processing mechanisms. 2004 Admitting that admitting verb sense into corpus analyses makes sense. This paper argues for including verb sense in corpora. 2004 Elizabeth Bates, A Scientific Obituary. This obituary for Elizabeth Bates. 2004 Quantity and Quality, A Model of How Linguistic Input Drives Lexical and Cognitive Development. This conference models input effects on development. 2004 Discovering Word Categories, Distributional Regularities in German Child-Directed Speech. This poster on distributional learning. 2004 Growth Trajectories and Cortico-Cortical Connections. This conference on brain growth in autism. 2004 Modeling Ambiguity Resolution. This technical report on ambiguity. 2004 Cognitive Sciences. This index or listing. 2004 Questions for Future Research. This outlines future directions. 2005 A Basis for Generating Expectancies for Verbs from Nouns. This paper shows noun-verb expectancy generation. 2005 Connectionist Models of Cognitive Development, where next this trends article discusses future of connectionist development models. 2005 Computational Approaches to Language Acquisition. This discusses computational language acquisition. 2005 Increased corpus callosum size in young children with autism. This abstract on autism brain differences. 2005 Learning Representations of Linguistic Sequences. This manuscript on sequence representations. 2005 Cognitive Sciences. This listing. 2005 Connectionism and Developmental Psychology. This entry on connectionism in psychology. 2005 Rethinking Innateness, A Connectionist Perspective on Development. MIT Press. Thelen, E. N. Smith, L.B. 1994. A Dynamic Systems Approach to the Development of Cognition and, this reference. 2006 Why is that structural prediction and ambiguity resolution in a very large corpus of English sentences? This paper uses corpus for prediction and ambiguity. 2006 Event Structure and Discourse Coherence Biases in Pronoun Interpretation. This conference on pronoun biases. 2006 Grammatical and Coherence-Based Factors in Pronoun Interpretation. This conference on pronoun factors. 2006 Proceedings of the 28th Annual Conference of the Cognitive Science Society. These proceedings edited. 2006 Grammatical and Coherence-Based Factors in Pronoun Interpretation. This proceedings variant. 2006 I Interpreting Ambiguous Pronouns. Goal Preference. This on Pronoun Interpretation. 2006 I Interpreting Ambiguous Pronouns. This variant. 2006 Language Input and Semantic Categories, a relation between cognition and early word learning. This work was supported by NIMH Grant MH6051701A2 to Jeffrey Elman. We are, this journal on input and categories. 2006 Liu, YB21 Massey, CB75 Mattingly, JB, 53 Mellinger, AB11 Miesguer, EB1. This index. 2007 Frequency of Basic English Grammatical Structures, a Corpus Analysis. This paper analyzes grammatical structure frequencies in corpora. 2007 Getting the Gist Is Not Enough, an ERP investigation of word learning from context. This conference on ERP word learning. 2007 Getting the Gist Is Not Enough, an ERP investigation of contextual word learning. This proceedings variant. 2007 How are repeated items encoded in working memory? This conference on working memory encoding. 2007 Rumelhart Prize Talk, on Words and Dinosaur Bones, Where is Meaning? This keynote on lexical meaning location. 2008 Coherence and Coreference Revisited. This paper revisits coherence and coreference in discourse. 2008 Large-Scale Modeling of Word Form Learning and Representation. This paper models large-scale word form learning. 2008 Growth-Related Neural Reorganization and the Autism Phenotype, a test of the hypothesis that altered brain growth leads to altered connectivity. This paper tests brain growth hypothesis in autism. 2008 Selective effect of ApoE4 on CA3 and dentate in normal aging and Alzheimer's disease using high-resolution MRI at 4T. This paper examines APO effects on hippocampal subfields. 2008 Online Expectations for Verbal Arguments Conditional on Event Knowledge. This conference on event-based expectations. 2008 Online Dynamic Combination of Concepts During Language Comprehension. This journal on concept combination. 2008 Situation-Specific Expectations for Verbal Arguments, Evidence from Self-Paced Reading and ERPs. This poster on argument expectations. 2008 Learning Representations of Word Forms. This Cognitive Science on Word Form Representations. 2009 On the Meaning of Words and Dinosaur Bones, Lexical Knowledge Without a Lexicon. This paper argues for distributed lexical knowledge. 2009 The wind chilled the spectators, but the wine just chilled, sense, structure, and sentence comprehension. This paper examines sense and structure in comprehension. 2010 Knowing a lot for one's age, vocabulary skill and not age is associated with anticipatory incremental sentence interpretation in children and adults. This paper links vocabulary to anticipatory processing. 2010 Effects of Event Knowledge in Processing Verbal Arguments. This paper shows event knowledge influencing argument processing. 2010 Once is Enough, and 400 indexes semantic integration of novel word meanings from a single exposure in context. This paper shows single exposure word learning via N400. 2010 Learnability and the Statistical Structure of Language, Poverty of Stimulus Arguments Revisited. This variant on poverty of stimulus. 2010 Spatiotemporal Dynamics of Bilingual Word Processing. This paper examines bilingual word processing dynamics. 2010 Evidence of neurodegeneration in brains of older adults who do not yet fulfill MCI criteria. This paper finds neurodegeneration pre-MCI. 2010 Generalized event knowledge activated during online language comprehension. This on event knowledge activation. 2010 A microgenetic analysis of word learning in infants with and without language delay using a preferential looking paradigm. This symposium on word learning delays. 2010 Semantic integration of novel word meanings after a single exposure in context. This conference on novel word integration. 2010 Individual differences in anticipatory eye movements, vocabulary size is associated with speed of noun-verb integration. This conference on vocabulary and integration. 2010 Effects of event knowledge in processing verbal arguments. This variant. 2011 Event-based plausibility immediately influences online language comprehension. This paper shows immediate plausibility effects. 2011 Language proficiency modulates the recruitment of non-classical language areas in bilinguals. This paper examines proficiency effects in bilinguals. 2011 Spatiotemporal neural dynamics of word understanding in 12 to 18-month-old infants. This paper studies infant word comprehension dynamics. 2011 Lexical knowledge without a lexicon. This paper reiterates distributed lexicon view. 2011 Finnish nominal inflection, paradigmatic patterns and token analogy. This chapter on Finnish inflection patterns. 2011 Adults and children fast map novel connections between words. This conference on fast mapping. 2011 Investigating the spatiotemporal neural dynamics of lexicosemantic activity in 12 to 18-month-old infants by combining magnetoencephalography and magnetic resonance imaging. This abstract on infant lexicosemantic dynamics. 2012 Knowing a lot for one's age, vocabulary skill and not age is associated with anticipatory incremental sentence interpretation in children and adults. This variant with corrigendum note. 2012 Generalized event knowledge activation during online sentence comprehension. This paper on event knowledge in comprehension. 2013 The emergence of language, a conspiracy theory. This chapter proposes emergent language view. 2013 Lexical activation during sentence comprehension in adolescence with history of specific language impairment. This paper examines lexical activation in SLE. 2013 Independence of early speech processing from word meaning. This paper shows early speech word independence. 2013 Getting it right, word learning across the hemispheres. This paper studies hemispheric word learning. 2014 Exploiting lawful variability in the speech wave. This reprint or variant on speech variability. 2014 Real-time interpretation of novel events across childhood. This paper examines novel event comprehension development. 2014 Age-related changes in tissue signal properties within cortical areas important for word understanding in 12 to 19-month-old infants. This paper studies infant cortical changes. 2014 Structured representations and connectionist models. This reprint on structured representations. 2014 Representing variable information with simple recurrent networks. This reprint. 2014 Connectionist models, Proceedings of the 1990 Summer School. This proceedings reprint. 2014 Systematicity in the lexicon, on having your cake and eating it too. This chapter on lexical systematicity. 2014 A connectionist account of English inflectional morphology, evidence from language change. Mary Hare Department of Psychology, Birkbeck College, University of London. Hare at CRL, this proceedings variant. 2014 Exploiting lawful variability, Departments of Linguistics and of Diego. This variant on variability. 2014 Proceedings of the 1993 Connectionist Models Summer School. This reprint. 2015 Novel Word Learning, an eye-tracking study. Are 18-month-old late talkers really different from their typical peers? This paper compares word learning in late talkers. 2016 Lexical leverage, Category knowledge boosts real-time novel word recognition in 2-year-olds. This paper shows category knowledge aiding word recognition. 2016 Semantic structure in vocabulary knowledge interacts with lexical and sentence processing in infancy. This paper examines vocabulary structure in infants. 2016 Hemispheric asymmetry in event knowledge activation during incremental language comprehension, a visual half-field ERP study. This paper studies hemispheric event knowledge effects. 2016 Cognitive practice effects after 5.6 years, comparison with matched replacement participants. This abstract on practice effects. 2017 Innateness and Emergentism. This companion reprint on innateness. 2017 Connectionism, Artificial Life, and Dynamical Systems. This companion on connectionism and dynamics. 2017 The association between platelet transfusions and bleeding in critically ill patients with thrombocytopenia. This medical paper on transfusions. 2017 Conversion discriminative analysis on mild cognitive impairment using multiple cortical features from MR images. This paper on MCI classification. 2018 Underdiagnosis of mild cognitive impairment, a consequence of ignoring practice effects. This paper discusses practice effects in MCI diagnosis. 2018 Symposium on Event Predictive Cognition. These proceedings on predictive cognition. 2019 Influence of young adult cognitive ability and additional education on later life cognition. This PNAS paper on cognitive trajectories. He passed away on June 28, 2018, at the age of 70 due to a heart condition. 2019 Resting state abnormalities of the default mode network in mild cognitive impairment, a systematic review and meta-analysis. This review on resting state in MCI. 2019 A model of event knowledge. This review proposes event knowledge model. 2019 Hippocampal subfield volumes are uniquely affected in PTSD and depression, international analysis of 31 cohorts from the PGC Enigma PTSD working group. This preprint on hippocampal volumes. 2019 A-beta positivity predicts cognitive decline but cognition predicts progression to A-beta positivity. This preprint on amyloid and cognition. 2019 Using graph theory to understand the structure of event knowledge in memory. This conference on event knowledge graphs. 2020 Amyloid beta positivity predicts cognitive decline but cognition predicts progression to amyloid beta positivity. This published version on amyloid prediction. 2020 Degree of cognitive impairment does not signify early versus late mild cognitive impairment, confirmation based on Alzheimer's disease polygenic risk. This paper on MCI subtypes. 2021 Toddlers' ability to leverage statistical information to support word learning. This paper on statistical word learning in toddlers. 2021 Prediction-based learning and processing of event knowledge. This topics paper on predictive event processing. 2021 Concurrent and predictive associations between the Life Simple 7 and brain structure in middle age and early old age. This abstract on lifestyle and brain structure. 2022 Cognitive practice affects delay diagnosis of MCI, implications for clinical trials. This paper on practice effects in trials. 2022 Symposium on Cognitive Architecture. These proceedings on cognitive architecture. 2024 Using network science to provide insights into the structure of event knowledge. This paper uses networks for event knowledge structure.